A friend of mine complains that she just can't find men who will date and commit. She has put herself out there on dating apps and speed dating and has made it known. I have a boyfriend, but in my single days, I unapologetically put it out there and even had some questions to screen any guys who tried to fake it to me, which always outed them. She is going to start keeping it to herself so she can land more dates, but I know there are men out there who wouldn't be put off. Is it really off-putting for women to say they are feminists? Edit. My friend and I are not misandrists. We do not hate men, and we do not wish for inequality between men and women, nor do we want female superiority. I won't explain further, as bitter man-children will just try to twist my words anyway. Story 1. If her being a feminist is the problem, it's not her stating that she's a feminist directly that is the problem. It's a combination of her brand of feminism and her taste in men. In which case, she should look into revising one or both of those. It's also quite possible that she's merely misidentifying the problem and there's some other issue with her personality, how she interacts with others, or how she chooses a man. Is it really off-putting for women to say they are feminists? It depends on how she does it, when she does it, where she does it, and what kind of feminist she declares herself to be. If things progress for long enough, what kind of feminist she demonstrates herself to be, and if that contrasts with what kind of feminist she professes to be can also be factors. Also, the particular dude in question. Story 2. I think you can be a feminist without shouting it from the rooftops. My spontaneous thought is she's just being inconsiderate and is using that as an excuse. Story 3. Depends on what kind. A true feminist who just wants to have equal opportunity and understands what that entails, or the kind who thinks men are filth. Story 4. Yes, it's off-putting. Not so much because she is a feminist, but because if she's advertising it on her dating profile, she is more than likely not the sort of feminist you want to spend any time around. Story 5. Maybe the political climate is different now than when you were single, and perhaps that's why there's some contrast between your experience and your friends. Or you're just a better catch than she is. Regardless, when women call themselves feminists, a lot of guys' thoughts immediately go to the extremely radical feminist individuals that both treat men poorly and paint a negative picture for feminists in general. If you ask around, I'm willing to bet the average guy is mostly for equality nowadays, or at least that's been my experience as a man. But there's still a lot of guys who can't shake off bad experiences from the past with women like this or just toxic portrayals they've seen online. Now, whether or not this generalization is healthy is an entirely different topic of conversation, but to answer your question, I don't think men find feminists off-putting, and more of a yellow flag going on in their brain that gives them pause. Also, and this is purely anecdotal, but men seem to care less about presenting political and moral alignments as their identity, especially on dating profiles. For instance, I'm a big advocate for open dialogues regarding men's mental health, but I'm not going to include that on my dating bio. Story 6. I support feminism. I do not support misandry. Today's feminism leans a little too much toward misandry. I don't like men, but I'm tired of being alone and I have needs be appealing to here? Because that's what I'm a feminist said upfront looks like to me. Now, if it's said organically during the conversation, that's something else. I'd be happy to discuss that. But someone who would start by saying that, like a spear right in my face, would be it's a no from me right away. My thoughts. Story 7. Yes, it's one thing to be for the equality of the sexes. It's another to constantly talk about it, think about it, and make it a defining feature of your personality. As a guy, I'm not interested in constantly having my every action screened in terms of how sexist it is. Not only does it feel controlling, but it feels like just an excuse to have a fight over everything. Story 8. Does she unironically use terms like mansplaining? If so, no guy in his right mind will want anything long-term with her. Or does she just want equal rights? If so, I can't imagine anyone having an issue with her. Edit. Please stop downvoting Axel and Havoc. I might disagree with them, but they are making a civil and cordial discussion. That is rare enough on the internet already. Story 9. Feminism nowadays is quite wrongly understood. While normally feminism stands for equality between genders, the same degree of respect, rights, privileges, and so on, which I respect, I see more and more feminists who pride themselves in hating men and trying hard to put them back in their place. Why would I date someone like that? Story 10. By itself, Being a feminist is not a problem. In fact, it's a good thing. However, if you call yourself a feminist and then expect a man to perform male gender roles while you criticize him for being a man, don't hold yourself to any of the rules or expectations that feminism has laid out, and act entitled, then it becomes a problem. There are so many different kinds of feminism. It's a yellow flag for me. I know green flag feminists, and I don't associate with red flag feminists. Story 11. I've had women say that they believe in equal opportunities and will fight for what they believe is important. Thumbs up, I've got your back in a fight. I've had one woman say that, and it was clear that she was a mental wreck, using that ideology as an excuse to enable her toxic behavior. Thumbs down and out the door. I think the second example exists in most groups, and they give them all bad press. Story 12. I've met so many self-proclaimed feminists who advocate the most absurd and hateful things towards the opposite gender that my view of meeting a feminist is now strongly negative. My half-sister is literally the walking stereotype. She hates men so much she only dates women, grows out all her body hair no matter if the armpit looks like a tropical jungle, votes for public figures that wish to create a men tax and punish men in any shape or form possible, and makes connections between men being majority rapists. However, if you apply the same logic to foreigners, who are also majority representatives in rape in my country, then it's not valid anymore because it's considered racist but not sexist. She just wants any excuse at any time of the day to blame men for any misfortune. And of course, she's the difficult family member who starts discussing politics at the Christmas table. Story 13. I just automatically assume all women are feminists. Why wouldn't they be? But if they say they are, and it's a major part of their personality, then I feel it's probably going to be more trouble than it's worth being around her. Because as far as I'm concerned, being around anyone who makes an ism a major part of their personality is going to be exhausting, and I'm going to get tired listening to their complaints all the time. Because someone who makes an ism a major part of their personality always finds something to be offended by. And I hate to say it, but feminists are usually on the worst end of that spectrum too. Story 14. I think that equality and women's rights are amazing. I have known many women who believe strongly in it and understand why. I have never met a woman who uses the phrase feminist to describe themselves who wasn't one or all of these. Offensive, narcissistic, man-hating, or downright cultish. Being a feminist is a red flag. Story 15. I would run the other way. I mean, literally, if a woman said that on a first date, I'd go to the bathroom and never return. She should definitely be upfront about it and put it on any online profile. Story 16. Off-putting? No. But I promise men will very quickly try to establish what type of feminist you are. For example, my two groups are roughly we hate men feminists or we want what's fair feminists. I don't think men inherently dislike feminism in the same way people don't inherently dislike veganism. It's the extremists who make it tough for all of us. I recall going on a date and being scolded for opening the door and offering to pull out and push in the chair for a lady. I told her it was how I was raised and how it had always been drilled into me as a child. As a staunch feminist, she proceeded to comment on my family's values and how deeply rooted the issue was. All I needed was a simple, thanks but no thanks. And I would have accepted her stance and gone on with my evening without door opening and chair pulling. But her whole attitude soured dinner, and at the end of the night, I said thank you and deleted her number from my phone. Story 17. The second you tell me you are a feminist, I just want to get as far away as possible. It's not because I don't share a lot of the same beliefs, but because just look at what feminists are known for. Fake rape claims, public assaults on men, public shaming for really nothing. If it was the other way around, would you want to be near anyone like that? Story 18. I am a feminist in the traditional sense of the word. I believe in equality. However, if a woman I was dating made feminism her entire personality, or if her brand of feminism was just hating men, that would be unattractive. Story 19. 1900s feminist? Love it. 2020s feminist? Yeah, no, forget that. There is a major difference between the two. One wants equality among all, while the other wants to drag everyone else down to prop herself up. Story 20. It really depends. Are you radical to the point where everything is about the blame being put on men? That's extremely off-putting. That said, If you're the kind of person who can actually see and argue for your cause, recognize that both men and women have shared and separate issues, and see both perspectives, I find that quite attractive, to be honest. Story 21. In my experience, there are two types of feminists. Ones that support actual equality and don't hate you for being male. They are silent about their political stance. Ones that make it a core part of their identity because they lack other attributes like beauty, intelligence, talent, or character. They blame their lack of success on men and resent you for being male. They are outspoken about their stance. The second group is off-putting, yes. Story 22. A few years ago, I met up with an old ex who tried to get back with me, and she identified as a pretty radical feminist. It turns out she was just deeply traumatized and hated men. She was insufferable to be around and said I was the problem when I turned her down. Story 23. Usually, women who make being a feminist a part of their personality and feel the need to announce it are just using it as a way to mask their misandry. Honestly, the topic shouldn't come up on the first date. Story 24. I thought I was a feminist and used to say I was when I thought it was about women being seen as individual human beings with freedom to decide their path in life. I found out feminism is a defined and limited political and social thing. Story 25. Saying bitter man children doesn't help prove your point. To answer your question, yes, it is off-putting. Every person I have met who proudly states they are a feminist was extremely toxic and narcissistic. Almost every man I have talked to has had the same experience. The only men that didn't were gay. So, it is pretty much stating, hey, I'm a huge red flag, and I'm going to nitpick your life because you are privileged, and I am not. Not saying I'm against equality. I am all for it. Even if you disagree with my experience, the amount of toxic behavior expressed by feminists online is so off-putting. It is honestly in our best interests to just not deal with it. Story 26. Feminism is more of an internet thing. I've never in my life held a meaningful conversation with a woman where this came up. What does it even mean? Does she organize protests? Does she lobby Congress? Does she do anything related to feminism other than talk about it? Story 27. After a short time, it became an instant no for me. I am a relatively traditional man, so I came to realize that I wanted to be with a traditional woman. Usually, women who strongly identify as feminists aren't even happy when other women choose to be stay-at-home mothers, let alone doing it themselves. And that's fine. I didn't need every woman to be my wife. Just the one, and we're very happy together. Story 28. I think feminism by itself isn't off-putting for the majority of men. I think if you're on a date getting to know each other, mentioning that you're a feminist can come across as a bit, like you're really pushing an identity. Someone telling me they're a feminist on a first date would indicate to me that there isn't much more to their personality than feminist ideals, especially if she says it really early on. If you're truly a feminist, you wouldn't have to say it, I feel. I wouldn't stop the date, though. It's a tough one. Definitely depends on the guy. Maybe saying you're a feminist on a first or second date sort of shuts down further conversation, as it sort of lets the guy know what you think about certain things. Or at least what you think about these things based on what he thinks feminism is, without him finding out what you actually think. Story 29. I'm going to try to go in-depth into the mind of these men. Right now, in the 2010s and 2020s, you have feminists going to events focused on male mental health, yelling at every single person walking in. This is what men's rights looks like. There was a person there whose friend just committed suicide, and he wanted to talk to someone about it. You have feminists saying men are trash, feminists saying that all men are rapists. The list goes on. Historically, these wouldn't be feminists, but as I'm sure you know, the definition of words changes, and since these are the loudest people, this is very quickly becoming what feminist means to a lot of people. Having someone make this the entirety of their personality to the point where they have to announce it before even going on a date and filter out men they find suitable, at least men who have the mental health to see themselves in a positive light, aren't going to approach women like that. Women like this, at least in the eyes of the men I just mentioned, are akin to white people who know exactly one black person because they're one of the good ones. Take that exact same train of thought and apply it to men and women instead of race. Someone who is so feminist to the point where they're saying things like that about men, but then very quickly adding, Not you though, you're fine to their boyfriend is not someone most of us want to date. Those people have corrupted the term feminist so much that if the first thing a woman says to a potential boyfriend is, "I'm a feminist," it's off-putting. Talk to your friend about guys in general, not in a dating context. See if she's someone you even want to continue talking to. Story 30. Feminism is a hate movement. Telling a man that you are a feminist is literally the same thing as telling him that you hate them. It's very off-putting to be told that you are hated. I have no interest in bringing a person who hates me, who wants to hate me, into my life. It's a non-starter. Not only will I not date a feminist, I won't associate with her in any way. Story 31. For me, it totally is. As someone more libertarian, there are quite a lot of subjects where we might agree, but my experience has shown that being a feminist comes with many issues involving their personality and views towards men as a group. I'm not willing to put up with such expectations and resentment towards men, regardless of the excuse given. If you're going to lie about it to your dates, it's not like it's a crime or that anyone will stop you, but I certainly pity whoever ends up dating you.